This is an open goal now, is it not, for Labour to run headfirst into? Labour might do some damage in Scotland, will they? How are you going to do it?
Well, I think firstly we should give our gratitude to Nicola Sturgeon for the service that she's provided. We disagreed on most things, but she's been a stalwart of Scottish politics and has led the debate through some of Scotland's most difficult times. But Anas Sarwar, as the Scottish Labour Party leader, he's popular. He's talked today about new ideas and a new passion. He's the insurgent in Scottish politics. He's taken to the Scottish Labour Party to the low 30% in the polls. And it's now time for, I think, the reset button to be hit on Scottish politics with Nicola Sturgeon's departure, and for us to get back to the priorities of ordinary Scots, which is the cost of living crisis, the NHS, education and the like, very similar priorities than they are to the rest of the UK. And that has been putting forward scrutiny of the government's dreadful record on these issues for the last 2 years, and he's coming up with his own ideas and positive policy platform. We're excited about taking that to the Scottish people, and today gives us an opportunity to use that as a platform.
Absolutely, but despite what Nicola Sturgeon has to say, the fact is that the straw that broke the camel's back is because she couldn't really fully admit that an individual who was a male rapist who was sent to a women's prison was in fact a man. And if Labour want to make inroads in there, you are going to have to sort that out. Is the individual who raped women and was put in a women's prison a man or a woman?
Well, I think it's quite clearly it was a man who was trying to portray himself as a woman and using the law and manipulating the law to do so. But I think the big question here, and I think Nicola Sturgeon touched on this in her press conference, if you listen to it carefully, was twofold. One was she has lost control of her party. We've seen that here with Ian Blackford being taken out as the Westminster leader for the SNP and replaced by Stephen Flynn, who was not Nicola Sturgeon's choice for the role. And we've seen that she's lost control of the de facto referendum that she wanted to turn the next general election into. So when you put all that together, she's lost control of the party, she's lost control of the only issue she went into politics to deal with, independence, and her record in government is pretty appalling. In fact, I think she even struggled herself today to say what her legacy was after 8 years as First Minister.
To be fair, she did actually, and she was clinging to the idea of the baby boxes and all of this stuff, which look, it's a nice touch, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, after that length of time in office, I suspect that it would have been, or should have been, a stronger legacy. I'm just going to ask you one more on this, and then I will move on to other topics when it comes to what's going on north of the border. But, Labour did help wave through the thing that has led to Nicola Sturgeon's demise, this Gender Recognition Act. I mean, do you regret that now? Because you will forever be linked with what is an absolute disaster.
Well, Labour didn't wave it through. We, as an opposition party, have to deal with what's in front of us, not the way we would do it ourselves. We got the Equality Act on the face of the bill, which the Equality Act does allow for the discrimination against trans people as exemptions to the Equality Act to protect single-sex spaces. We got that as an amendment on the face of the bill. We've got protections for 16 and 17-year-olds on the face of the bill, and we've got additional guidelines and protections on the face of the bill in order to protect women and to protect trans people. So it wasn't an ideal piece of legislation. It wasn't dealt with properly. The Scottish Government didn't bring people together, and we backed our amendments to get the amendments on the face of the bill. That was the right thing to do, to get those amendments on a bad piece of legislation. And now the Section 35, which we're not opposing, is down on the table to stop the piece of legislation because of cross-border issues. I think that was the right thing to do, and Anas Sarwar has been pretty clear on that.
And you mentioned Nicola Sturgeon's legacy, really, and what she leaves behind. 68% more people going to private healthcare and to try to swerve the NHS up there in Scotland. The attainment gap, which she was quite squiffy on when she was doing her legacy element of her speech there, actually isn't particularly great. The drug death stuff gets wheeled out left, right and centre, doesn't it? You don't need me to tell you that. Even potholes, apparently. Potholes, supposedly, are at one of the worst levels ever in Scotland. Who knew? But there we go. And independence, the cause for independence, now 12 points behind in the polls. This is a good opportunity for Labour. If Labour gets Scotland right, it could actually give them the keys to Downing Street, couldn't it?
Well, and that's the message to Scottish voters. They are desperate for a UK Labour government. We are desperate to prove that a UK Labour government can transform the whole of the UK and really change Scotland for the better. And the list of things that you've just read off there is the legacy of 15 years of SNP government in Scotland. The reason there's potholes all over Scotland is because they've absolutely decimated local authority funding, who've no funds whatsoever to run basic services, let alone fill potholes in the street. And that's the legacy that this First Minister leaves. It's up for us now, and Anas Sarwar and Keir Starmer Armour to put forward that positive, pragmatic and progressive policy platform that everyone wants to see, that can show that the UK Labour government can transform Scotland and be a UK Labour government for the benefit of the whole of the UK, and to show that the priorities of the Scottish people are our priorities, and not to get dividing Scotland on the issue of the Constitution. We need to bring people together and do what's in the very best interests of the whole of Scotland, and that's what Anas Sarwar's determined to deliver.